Well, I'll go first because it's my show and I can ask the question. What I suppose my kind of immediate thought when speaking to you, Gemma, about the work that you're doing now versus the work you were doing, and also our conversations we've had on WhatsApp and whatnot, is you said that the move from L&D to culture was eye-opening. So my first question is why? What is the big difference that you've seen between those two fields?
It's a great shout. So I think what moving into a culture role has done is it sort of exploded the view that I have about the challenges that the organisation faces. And what I think my time in learning and development did was give me real, like, clear methodology and experience of solving problems for the organisation, looking at it through a capability lens. What culture allows me to do, and perhaps arguably is what I should have been doing when I was in a learning role anyway, is it allows me to look at those problems from a much broader perspective. So I can now look at, and in my role that currently, so I can see I've got some of my amazing teammates on the call. Thank you for joining. What we do as a team currently is we surface insights from the organisation and we then play those back to the organisation with a view to taking action. And that could be on any topic. So it might be linked to learning, it might be linked to leadership capability, it could be related to a policy or a proposition, it might be related to the way we manage certain processes, it could be linked to sort of external market conditions. There'll be a number of different problems for us to solve. And I think the reason I'm loving what I do now and the reason it feels different to L&D is it is that sort of juicy, wide problem. But I do look back and I think, actually, I probably should have had that broader view when I was in learning roles. So I'm sure some of you already do have that perspective on the call, but that was the big change for me, where I was like, it was almost license to play and license to solve that I've got here now.
Very nice. I'm sure some of us are envious of that power.
I wouldn't call it power, but what I would say is definitely we have a voice. So one of the things I love about the role that I'm doing now is our leaders in the organisation take culture incredibly seriously. Like this goes right up to, our board. We're not fighting for that seat at the table that you hear a lot in HR sort of circles. We are absolutely at the table. Like, culture is a lever to our transformation. If we don't get this right and we don't change our culture, we can't be the business that we want to be. We can't serve our customers. So it's top of the agenda for most things that I go to. Like, people are super interested in it, and I'm sure my teammates on the call would vouch for the fact that there is a hunger and a desire for more and more, like, deep insight about what we can do to change the culture that we've got.
Sounds like a useful reframing of L&D in general then.
Yeah, absolutely. And culture change is part of L&D's remit as well, right? Like, we should all be leaning into that and saying it's not going to be a training course that solves our problem. It's going to be a cultural shift.
I'm going to go to the lines. So first we have Alina on line 1. Alina, can you hear us?
Hey,
Thank
Alina.
you. Thank you, Charlie. Hi, Gemma. So I have a follow-up actually from the breakout room where I was with Damon. I believe Damon said that she works with you, and we touched a little bit on how culture can be measured, and she mentioned some surveys. I was curious about the evolution of the questions especially for repeated surveys, because you just mentioned now that you come up with different problems to solve based on the answers. But sometimes if we ask, so there's a paradox of asking the same question gives you the data and the progression, but then asking the same questions can limit the range. I mean, I don't know, maybe they're open questions that can refer to anything. So if you can give us an idea about the evolution that you've noticed, I mean, in your experience, and what would be the categories not to miss in an engagement survey in your view? I don't know. It's a double question.
No, great question. Thank you so much for asking it. So in terms of how questions have evolved, we definitely went through quite a bit of an evolution last year when we looked at our all colleagues survey. And what I would always say, I don't think there is going to be one category that, you know, is a catch-all for every organization. It really is about what problems are you trying to solve for in your company, like what is going on for you that you need to get under the skin of, and then using that to shape the questions. One of the things that we do is we work with external partners. So a lot of our work is externally benchmarked and externally verified. So we work with Ipsos, Carrion and Box, who are a global employee engagement expert. So we'll collaborate with them on that. I know not everyone can do that and has the time or resources to be able to do it. But what I would say, it's about really understanding that the survey doesn't belong to us as a culture team. That it's not our survey. This is something that informs the business, and that stakeholder engagement is so important. So we really have to understand what people are finding difficult. Ask them, you know, if you had 100 people in a room now, what would you ask them? And gather that insight. But the other thing that I think we have a real responsibility to do as engagement or culture professionals is to really be the guardians of that question set, because the survey can bloat really quickly. You can get, you know, you end up with like 1 million questions. I can see, Elena, you're smiling, Riley, as if you've had that challenge before. So we have to be really mindful of, we only ask things that we're prepared to take action on. And one of the number one drivers of disengagement is a lack of action being taken off the back of a survey. The other thing that I would say, sort of in relation to your second question around what categories do you think are non-negotiable, depends where you are on your journey, what you're trying to achieve. Like at the moment, transformation is massive for us. So we're about like how able is the organization to absorb change, how do people feel about change, how equipped are people to transform and shift as they need to. What I would also say is surveys are a start point, but they're not going to give you the whole answer. So it's really important to look at wider research. So looking at qualitative research, focus groups, interviews, ethnography studies, but also combining different data sources that you have access to try and tell you a broader picture. So not taking the survey as, you know, once and done, we know where we are. It's a point in time that gives you a signpost to start to ask deeper questions. Does that answer your question?
Thanks very much for the question.
Thank you.
Line number 2, which was now line number 1, is Mark. Hi, Mark. How are you doing?
Good, Charlie. How are you?
Good, thank you. Please,
Good.
please go ahead.
Hi, Gemma. We overlapped briefly at BP. I hope
We
you're keeping
did.
well.
Nice to
Yeah,
see
hi there.
you.
Nice to see you.
Hi.
Two reflections on culture that I'd love your take on. So traditionally, you know, organizations say, this is us, these are our values, it's about integrity or teamwork or blah, 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 whatever it is. And what I'm noticing recently is many organizations are now saying, we actually want to know about you and your values and create a kind of company where you can be your best self. That's the first thing. I'd love your take on that. And the second thing is ultimately what we know by companies like Gallup is 70% of the rationale behind people having a good day or a bad day, being engaged or disengaged, is the relationship they have with the direct manager. That is the number one thing that really, really matters, you know. And so, you know, to what extent in your culture analysis are you seeking to measure and equip those frontline leaders?
Both super interesting questions. Let's get into it. So the first one around values and how they show up. I love co-creation. Like, I feel like collaboration is in my blood. Like, I see that around me at Lloyd's. Like, definitely people are up for co-creating it. One of the things that I would say underpins those values is how stuff happens. So when people say, you know, like if I'm explaining this to someone down the pub or explaining it to a family member, like when I explain what culture is, I say it's how stuff gets done. Like, that's it. It's nothing more complex than that. It's how things get done around here and how we treat each other, how we show up, what is accepted and what is challenged. That becomes our culture. I don't think you cannot co-create with your employees or colleagues, as we would refer to our colleagues at Lloyd's. I think we absolutely have to co-create, and we're on a bit of an interesting journey now. Like we're partway through our the delivery of our strategy and our transformation. One of the biggest transformations in UK financial services. Super excited to be part of it. But as part of that, what we measure will change, right? Like what we look at in terms of the cultural shifts that we're measuring will change. The values, we're always looking at them to say, like, are these the right things that are going to drive us to where we need to get to? And it's having that balance of being able to bring in the voice of what people want, being able to peel that back and look at what people need, and then being able to marry that up with what the organisation needs as well. That would be my sort of view on the values piece. On the second piece that you mentioned around manager, absolutely at the heart of everything, right? Like you're so right. I read something somewhere around how your direct manager has more of an impact on your mental health than your partner does in your life, and I'm like, yeah, I can totally see that. So we take it again really seriously at Lloyds. I always have had leadership development has always been part of what I've done, even when I was in sort of the learning world. The way that we're set up at Lloyds is our team is called Culture and Leadership, and it's not just lip service. The two things are hand in hand. So I see the way our team works as a bit of a machine, really. So we surface insights from the business. We feed those insights into the broader culture and leadership team, and then we co-create interventions that will help to solve some of the problems that we're seeing. And more often not, that is really focusing on our leaders, like maybe focusing on segmenting those leaders into different populations, looking at the problems that they're facing, listening constantly to what colleagues are saying around, what they're getting or they're not getting. I think we're lucky we've got brilliant leaders and brilliant line managers within Lloyds, but there's always other stuff we need to do as well, right? And I think those two things have to be hand in glove. They have to be together. But I love the provocation there. I think that's a really, really nice question. Thank you.
Good stuff. Next up, we have Hayley. How are you doing, Hayley?
Hello, I'm good,
Hi,
thank
Hayley.
you. Hello, you're right. I'm not sure if my
I'm
camera is on,
good.
but I don't know why you can't. Can you see me?
We can't
No.
see you, but we
No.
can hear you.
Okay, my
Yes.
camera is on, but I don't know why you can't see me.
Right,
Yeah,
just
so
Teams.
oh, it's Teams. And my question was probably similar to Mark's first question, really. So we're going through a cultural renovation at Skipton, and we did loads of kind of external benchmarking, and we've got a kind of clear picture of where our current culture is versus where we want it to be. So we've got a model and a framework. And we're doing some of the great stuff you suggested that you're doing at Lloyds around those cultures, those focus groups. But I suppose what really kind of got to me was, especially in the title of this learning lab, is about how do you get to stuff that really matters. So I think I'm trying to understand any experience that you've had where we've got the framework, we know where we want to be, but how do we make sure that it's not just kind of blinkered in that approach, that this might be the right way, but how do we make sure this is still the right way we want to go and it's still showing up as well, I suppose?
Absolutely brilliant shout. Like I love the purpose that's behind that question, Hayley, and really nice to not that I can see you, but nice to hear you again. It's been a little while. So I think this is something that sort of is one of the things that keeps me awake at night. Like, are we focusing on the right stuff, and is it really making any difference? Because you could plow away doing great work, but it doesn't actually change anything, and that does concern me as like a measurement professional. One of the things that I found has been a real unlock for this, and we talked about it with Elena and Emma in my breakout group, and actually it was something that my team was running as a process just before I got on this call. I was on a call with a couple of my folks talking about that. And the thing that I think is really helpful here is using having a really strong define phase of the work that you're doing. And so there is a model called 5DI that I'm sure a lot of people on this call will know about, and I'm sure we can drop a link to more information if you're interested. But what the 5DI model does brilliantly, in the first phase of it, it's all about defining the problem that you're trying to solve in terms of business outcomes. And what I mean by that is whenever someone comes to my team and asks for us to get involved in doing some work, which happens a lot, like I love it, people are really hungry to collaborate with us. The first thing that I will always ask is what will look different as a result of us doing something. So if we can't define what that is, we shouldn't be doing the work. We shouldn't just be producing stuff that isn't going to make a difference. And what that should be is, not we want to improve EMPS or we want to improve the satisfaction score. What that should be is this will change as a result of it in the business. So it might be, we want to improve the satisfaction score so people feel better about their jobs. And then we ask the question, why do you want to feel better about your job? And it's like, well, so people are more engaged and productive. What does more productive mean? Well, that means that, you know, they can handle more requests, or they can service more tickets, or they can deliver greater value to customers. Like, it's really getting to what is the measurable thing that is going to make the difference. And there's a really nice quote. It's from a lady called Marie Forleo. She wrote a book called Everything is Figure-outable, which is more about sort of solving problems in your life, emotionally and spiritually and all of that good stuff. But I think it's really relevant. It's insight without action is just overhead or waste, and action is the only path to change. So it's all about, like, what is the action that you're wanting to drive at the end of doing that. So great to have the framework, great to have the ambition, great to have the end state and vision, but what is going to be the thing that you're going to measure and fix and see differently at the end of it?
That's great. Love that quote. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers, Hayley.
Thanks, Gemma. Thanks, Hayley, for the question as well. Let's move to the next one. I think it's Leon next. How are you doing? Long time no see.
Not bad.
Hey,
Not bad. Hello. I'm curious, and that's both for learning and culture and all the other things. We're often sweating over, you know, metrics in this framework and that framework, and should it be a 4-point scale, or, you know, like all these things. And that's all good. And, you know, a lot of that all needs doing. I'm sometimes sitting there, you know, with my herbal tea, hugging a tree, wondering, because there is a bit of like hard to quantify magic. And I think we've all experienced it, and we kind of know what that is. And even people who are critical probably also know what that is. You know, like, I wouldn't know what spreadsheet you would get a marriage proposal out of if you tried to track it or something, you know, but like people intuitively kind of know what that is, but that's not really useful to talk about. Plus, we all know, like, the leadership industrial complex also produces a lot of bullshit that doesn't do a whole lot and probably shouldn't exist. And then it's all like, oh, but like vibes and things. So I don't know. What's your view? Like, how can you do something with that magic that's not like weird, but also still useful?
absolutely.
Am I making any sense?
Love that. You so are making sense, and it's so lovely to see you and hear from you. And a question that no one else could have asked, Leah. I love the way that you asked that. So how do you measure magic, I guess, is the question. And, you know, so some of what we do in culture has to be based on vibes, right? Like, it has to be powered by instinct and by what you can see and feel and touch. But that's not the only thing. And I think that's where the power is, when you blend both the science and the art together. I think that's where the magic comes in. And if you think about decision making, right, how leaders make decisions, yes, absolutely, they will take the data into account. Yes, absolutely, they will look at decision making frameworks and methodologies, and have things in place for that. But there's also going to be this instinct and gut that people go on based on years of experience and feeling. And I don't think you can take any one of those in isolation. I think you have to combine the science and the art, or the maths and the magic, to bring them both together. I love your suggestion that you couldn't put together what does a marriage proposal look like in a spreadsheet. I don't think you could do the exact same for culture, but what you can do is break that down into its component parts and say which bits of this is quantifiable, which bits of this can we measure, which bits of these are more related to a sentiment or a feeling, and it's again looking at things in the round and taking that step back and going broader. But if you figure out how to measure the magic, please do share the love. I would love to know that. I think you know, it's experimenting as well, right? It's going, we may not get this spot on, and again we talked about this in our breakout group, we may not get this spot on straight away, but done is better than perfect sometimes, and we can start somewhere, and then we can refine, test and learn, get better, and take it out from there. Fab. Thank you, Leah. Lovely to see you.
Thanks. Good to see you. Right, we've got. I want to get two more quick questions in. So we've got the next one, which is Julie. Julie, how you doing?
Hi. Pleasure to meet you, Gemma, and thanks for putting that event together. So I am calling from Sage, which is a SaaS company in the UK, global, and I am in the L&D function, and we are within the culture team as well. I think it's similar to what questions have been asked before, but basically there's a big top-down approach, which also encourage more working in silos of teams, and sometimes trying to herding all of these cats is complex. So I have two questions for that for you. One is, what is the technology that you're using in terms of processing and trying to centralize all of the data? And specifically, if you have a learning management system that you're using, we're using Cornerstone, which I personally feel like it's no offense to anyone working at Cornerstone or if they're on this call, obviously, but it feels quite dated and less flexible with what we need at the moment in terms of the measurement strategy, but also, like, for example, using the Kirkpatrick model, but also the experience that it brings to colleagues, receiving multiple emails for level 2 and level 3. After 3 months, they have completely forgotten what was that email or training about again. So I don't know if you have nailed that in terms of the tech. And then the other question is more similar to what was asked before. How do you measure those business impact tangibly and accurately? Because skill growth is just so personal, and also sometimes I would feel one way, my manager sees it another way, a colleague would say about me a different way. So how do you balance all of that?
Yeah, no, really great questions. And I think some of it I will draw on the experiences of my colleagues in the learning and development team. So we are like an adjacent sister team to learning and development. We sit as culture and leadership, and then we have our learning team alongside us within the people and places function. So we're hyper connected, working together, but they would own sort of the tech and stuff. So I'll share a view, but they might have a deeper view on it, which I'm really happy to connect you up with afterwards. In terms of the tech that we use, so we're a lot of our tech is Microsoft within Lloyds. So we are working from an employee engagement measurement perspective. We're looking at we use Microsoft Viva Glint. That's our tool of choice. And then for learning, we have a blend of Workday and Viva Learning. They'd be the sort of two tools that we use as the sort of learning management system and that system of record for skills. There's a lot of work going on at the moment around skills-based organisation, and I'm sure that's a hot topic for you over at Sage too. But I think the crux of it all is exactly what you've described there. So it's looking at business growth and looking at how do you really measure how we're growing. So there are sort of 3 areas that we look at in Lloyds. So we look at, are we doing the right thing by our customers? Are we able to perform? And are we able to change and to change quickly? And then under those, there are a bunch of measures that go underneath each one, but some of them will be skills linked, but most of them will be business metrics. They won't be, has this person completed this learning, or has this person developed those skills? They will factor into it and be a contributing factor, but we'll always look at how do we really zone in on the impact that we're making on the business, and how do we really measure that? And that wasn't something that we could define ourselves as a team. That's had to be created in collaboration with the business. So we've had to go around and say, if we were the organisation of the future that we want to get to, what would look different? Like, how would we be managing change, or what would our processes look like, or how would people feel about certain things? So I think it's about that collaboration with the business to say, let's co-define that end state, and then let's work back from it and look at how we need to build those skills that feed into it. But I think you probably really benefit from a chat with some of our colleagues in the learning team. So really happy to connect you up afterwards if that's helpful.
Would love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. And last but not least, we have Peter.
Right.
Hi, Peter.
Hey, Peter.
Hi. Good to connect with to Leo here about measuring the magic, because that's what we all want, right? In the end, I've been quite fond of using the leading and lagging indicators, trying to find leading indicators of something that I would like to achieve, and then create hypothesis in the lagging. So quick question, and you can spend as much time on elaborating on this as you want, but if we want the magic as lagging, where would you go seeking for the leading indicators to get that?
Great question. It's a debate we have in our team as well. So the way I sort of talk about this is the lag measure would be the heating's turned on. The lead measure would be, is the house warm? That's kind of the way that I would look at those two things. So what I would do, and it's a little bit like I was saying to Julia in the last question, there won't be one answer to that. It will be working with the business to say, right, if the heating was on, what would signify the house was warm? So if someone is saying there are no barriers to me getting my job done, what is happening in the business? Is that, you know, time to value creation through the JIRA tickets is reduced? Is that higher customer satisfaction scores? Is that call times drop in terms of customers contacting our contact centres? Is that a feature release is quicker to market on our app? And they would be, I think, the indicators that we would be looking at to say, is the lag measure that we're measuring in, say, the survey, for example, contributing to that end business goal? The only way I have found to do that currently is to have conversations with colleagues and really understand what it is that they're shooting for. I don't think I've found the magic wand yet, but if you've got suggestions as to what that might be, I'm all ears. I would love to hear them.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to sort of add to that and build on it finally, there is something that I think can get us towards it, can be a bit of a useful tool that helps us to get to that lead measure or to that action, or really demonstrating the change that we're doing. So there's a tool called, it's not got a catchy name, it's called the DIKW pyramid. I don't know if anyone has seen this before. The origin of it is sort of debated, but basically it's linked to, there's a T.S. Eliot play called The Rock, and there's a quote in there that says, where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge, and where is the knowledge we have lost in information? And it's this idea that you just get bogged down in data points and you never really get to the real point of it and to driving change. And you can see this is on the bottom here. I think Charlie will send this out afterwards, but basically what this says is it's our job as culture professionals, learning professionals, HR professionals, to help the organisation to move away from being obsessed with a data point and to really get them to wisdom. So to get to understanding what that data point is telling them and what it's signposting them towards. So what action can they take off the back of that? And just to give you an example, someone might come to my team and rightly so ask my team, what's our employee net promoter score? Perfectly reasonable question to ask. We also do have dashboards where they can self-serve that information, but it's a fine question to ask. What I would always say is, why do you want to know that score? Like, what are you going to do with it? And if the answer to that is they want to put that score, you know, in front of someone to show them the score, that's one step in the right direction. But actually, it'd be more powerful if they were saying, let's look at that in context, and let's transform that into information. And then you may look at that in comparison using an external benchmark that takes it to knowledge. And then you may look at, what is this telling us and what is that asking us to do? And that will take us to wisdom. So I think there are ways to get towards those lead measures. That is one of them that you might want to try if you haven't already. But if anyone does sort of take a look at that after Charlie sends it out and gives it a bit of a go, I'd love to hear from you. Like, reach out on LinkedIn and let me know how it's going. And if anyone finds the magic formula, please tell me that too, because I would love to know.